Welcome back to the kickoff, and Liverpool are champions. There's been a lot made about it on social media. Does anyone care? Do people care more about 100 men versus a gorilla? There's a lot of chat online about that right now, not so much about Liverpool. I got to give them credit, lads. They have put up a great season. But Josh, I was talking to you before we came on, mate. You've got some stats on this season to say how Liverpool, were they really that good?
Well, interestingly, if they win their last 4 games, which I don't think is a guarantee by any means, they've got some relatively difficult fixtures. Obviously, the game against Chelsea will be an easy win, and the game against Southampton will probably be even easier. But if they do get 12 points in that out of those 4 games, they will finish higher than any other team has in terms of points totals in the last 5 years. In fact, they will have more points than the last 5 teams, as I say, but 4 less than the amount that they had when they last won the title in the COVID season. So yeah, I think it's, I think to say that they don't deserve it per se, and that they haven't been a really good team is a little bit disingenuous.
Oh, they absolutely deserve it. I think it's a question of like, why are people not as impressed as they have been in other seasons? And I think there are a few reasons for it. And it's not that I'm taking anything away from them, because like, it's better for Newcastle because now at least we can say we beat the champions when we won the cup, right? I'm quite happy about that. But it's the lack of like being pushed. We didn't really get as much of a title race as what we were kind of expecting, especially with how Arsenal have performed in the last couple of seasons. And not just Arsenal, like a lot of teams that usually perform better in the last 10 years have sort of not showed up. And that's not Liverpool's fault. And I don't think Liverpool fans should give a monkeys, to be fair to them. But I think the fact that they started so red hot for the first 2/3 of the season, and it's not like they've been bad lately, but it just hasn't been quite as like consistent as what they were early on. I feel like that is leaving a bit of a, I don't know, like a bitter taste for some people.
I think that they've, and results wouldn't suggest this. This is just on the eye test of watching them. I think they've gone to the point where it now becomes about, right, getting over the line, winning the game. Sometimes the performances aren't the quality of what we have seen earlier on in the season, but they do pull it out the bag late on at Goodison in the last game there and things like that. And against some of the lesser teams, they've struggled. But I think that, relatively speaking, I don't think there's anyone that you would ask that say, nah, they don't deserve the league. I think it's more so about the level of competition in this season's Premier League. I mean, so say, for example, Arsenal last season, they finished the season with 5 draws to their name. They've got 13 draws to their name at this point in the season. I think it's only Everton, who have drawn with Arsenal, that have got more draws in the league this season. So I think that when you look at that and you look at the landscape of how things have played out, you could say, right, well, Arsenal and Man City have not been at the races to the extent that they would need to be to challenge for a title this season. Then, however, and obviously one of these teams in Nottingham Forest, Liverpool suffered a loss to. Then, however, I do think that you have a cluster of sort of like 8 teams that when you look at Liverpool's fixtures and results, they've done quite well against, that I think are stronger potentially than in seasons gone by. I think that the resurgence of Newcastle has been something. Nottingham Forest, a lot of people were backing them to go down at the start of the season, and they've been so good, you know. There's a lot of teams in there from sort of 3rd onwards to 10th that are tough teams to beat, and you have to give credit to Liverpool for getting over the line against those teams.
Some people might argue that that's just because the overall level of the league per team has dropped a little bit. Like, we've never seen those typical big 6, you know, have so many, you know, players from lower down the league who could get into their sides.
I think that's been the story of the season, though, Brian. I think in terms of those big 6 sides, all of them, Liverpool aside, would say they've had a disappointing season. Like, Spurs and United are lucky that the level of teams coming into the league are so poor, because they could be in relegation battles. Chelsea, obviously disappointing season, questions over the manager now. City losing Rodri, the season went to shit. We've had enough injuries that we're happy to be able to put squads out, let alone compete in Champions League. it's been a season where, Bournemouth were hot for a bit, Fulham looked good, Newcastle finishing the season well, but they've kind of been the story. And I think the funny thing about this Premier League now is those mid-level teams are probably the best they've been in years. Do you know what I mean? In terms of how competitive those teams are, I don't think that mid bit of the Premier League has ever been better. But that traditional top six, like you talk about, and they've all got reasons, they've all got excuses, and everyone's got the right to say, bollocks, you spend more money than anyone else, you shouldn't be as low as you are. But they've all had off seasons, and it is what it is. And Liverpool have been the one team that have stayed consistent. They haven't had the injuries. If you look at their best players, they've stayed fit all the way through, and that's not luck. That's credit to Slot for. Like Salah said himself, he said, I wanted my defensive responsibilities to be reduced. And I said to Slot, I will show you what I can do if you can do that. Credit to Slot. He trusted the player and did it. And I think you have to credit him with that. It's not just luck. Like there are things. I look at Arsenal, my team, 3 big hamstring injuries to players who do the most running in our team. There is a reason we're getting them. And you have to credit Slot with that.
You say it's not just luck. Obviously, look, it ain't just luck, but there is an element of luck in there. I remember in September of last year, Liverpool turned down, I think it was in the region of 150 million from El Ittihad for Salah. This wasn't long after the touchline row. I believe that was away at West Ham with Jurgen Klopp. Clear sort of unrest over the lack of not game time, but full 90 minutes that he was completing. He was getting bought off once he had scored a goal or two a lot of the time. And that was to his frustration. And I was wondering at that time, for a man that at the end of the next season would be turning, I think 33, 34, something like that, 33, I believe. I was wondering whether they had made the right decision. But in hindsight, what price do you put on a Premier League title? Because as brilliant as Alisson, has been, and Van Dijk, Kanate, Gravenberch, McAllister, probably many more that I'm not thinking of, at this point in the season, who in that front line, barring Salah, are you looking and going, they've been brilliant?
Mate, great shout, Joey. I think, honestly, take Salah out of that team. They've got a lot of forwards who haven't pulled their weight this season.
Mate, Luis Diaz, Gakpo, Jota, Nunes.
Darwin Nunes, man. What a flop that's been, you know what I mean?
So but credit to the rest of the team for hiding it, though, Brian, because there's not many teams that can swallow an £80 million flop like that.
That's what I'm saying. And 46 goal involvements at the time of recording. Let's hope he has to wait another fortnight to add on to them and he can do it against Arsenal and not against Chelsea. But let's be honest, not only is he going to beat the record of Andy Cole, and I'm sorry, Brian, Alan Shearer, not only is he going to beat the record of most goal involvements in a single Premier League season, he's going to make it hard for anyone to beat his record for a couple of decades at least, if ever. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
it's
goal
involvements.
Goal involvements, though. What's that? Goals is what we care about up north. But no, to be fair, he's been an absolute monster, and I think particularly earlier this season, it was mental watching how much he's improved.
Just before we move on from Liverpool, I just want to add on to what you were saying there about the quality of the Premier League this season. When you look at Newcastle, obviously they've been resurgent, but they're sat in third on game week 34, and I believe without the table in front of me, they got 62 points.
Yeah, 62.
Is it 62?
Yeah.
Game week 34 last season, Liverpool were third. They had 74. And 12 points, like sometimes you go, 4 wins. 4 wins is a lot. Uh-huh. That's a lot. That is a lot to show the disparity between the levels this season.
Does that not prove that the level has dropped overall in the Premier League?
I've got a theory on this, and just humour me for a second and whether you guys agree with this, but I feel this is one of the first seasons where PSR is actually really biting different teams, and I'll explain why. Like, if you look at that table now and the way that it has effectively amalgamated, and you've got, teams as low as 10th or 11th that could be fighting for European places, I do think this is now where Liverpool's lack of transfer movement in last summer showed where their squad was, and they haven't needed to strengthen in the way that other teams have had to and rebuild their squads. And therefore, they have had a natural advantage. I feel like when we're going to be talking about the era in which Van Dijk and Salah do leave the club, which is obviously now going to be in 2 years' time or in a year if they do want to get any money for them, then we're going to be talking about, a Liverpool team having to rebuild. They've obviously already signed that goalkeeper, Mamashvili, to replace Alisson. Again, that's a big shirt to fill, isn't it? Like, let's be honest, like that's a huge thing. So again, they've then got to replace the output of Salah, which we've just talked about as being exemplary and one of the best in the Premier League era. And they've got to replace one of the best centre-backs in the era, in the Premier League era as well. So that'll be interesting to see what they do next, especially within the parameters of PSR.
But I think because of that PSR, I agree with you, Josh. And I think what you're seeing across this league now, and fans will tell you this, by the way, match-going fans will tell you this is becoming a coaches' league. This is not a talent league anymore. I honestly believe that. If you watch matches of the day, if you watch games, there are less players with unbelievable, unstoppable talent. This has not been a season of that. The reason the Fulhams, the reason the Bournemouths, what are we talking about with Bournemouth? They've got great players. It's Areola. Do you know what I mean? The reason those mid-table teams are so good now is because they're so well coached that they are stopping those top 6 teams. And those top 6 teams do not have talent anymore that can just break a game open. And mate, I tell you now, you listen to TalkSport, and look, it gets some shit because it's full of bollocks, but you listen to TalkSport on a game day, the amount of fans calling in saying, I'm not renewing my ticket next year, I'm not doing another year of this season ticket, because the talent has just gone down. And as great it is that we've got the best managers in the world, and I do believe we've got the best managers in the world in this league competing with one another, the talent has dropped. And
do you know what's funny though? You say this, and yet you hear Manchester United fans taking the blame away from Ruben Amorim, because he hasn't been able to make a whole bunch of signings, to try and deflect away from the fact that he is failing to improve the team currently. And I understand him buying his own players will help that, but the lack of responsibility on him is absolutely outrageous. And it was the same for Ten Hag, so I can't say I'm surprised.
Listen,
There's 600 million in the hole
here. I'm sure
here.
David Moyes didn't have an orgasm when he saw Everton's
exactly.
depth. Exactly. And look
this
at
is
the
what
tune
I'm
he's
saying.
got out of them.
And it can be both. It can be a case in a team like Manchester United, and I dare say Spurs as well, where there's not enough talent and there's also not a proper coach in there at the same time. Do you know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
I do think you're right about PSR, mate. I think that what we've seen is it's now more important than ever to spend your money wisely. And I think the fact that Liverpool were left in such a good place by Jurgen Klopp, you do have to give him credit. I mean, I think there's every chance they would have won the league if Klopp had stayed. I think that I don't have any. I mean, I do think that Mo Salah in particular wanted rid of Jurgen Klopp. I think that was very obvious towards the end, and I think this has unleashed him and gotten the best out of him towards the end of his career. But generally, I think they would. Yeah, I think they would have won a title with Klopp. Does anyone disagree?
Nah, because I think even if you say there would have been unrest and unsettlement with Mo Salah, Klopp was still in charge when they turned down the bid. So let's say, for example, Mo Salah's goal involvements are halved. Still probably just about ahead of Arsenal, to be honest.
I mean, that's the thing, Joe. If we're going to say that Arsenal are going to finish second, then best case scenario is we finish on 79 points.
Yeah.
You're only asking Liverpool to get 80 points. And I still think they get that.
Yes, they would have done. Which I think they got more than that last season, didn't they?
Well, to give them a little bit of credit, right? And again, this comes back on Klopp, right? When he was there and Man City did the 4 in a row, do you know there was only one of those seasons when Man City did the 4 in a row where come match week 34, they had accumulated more points than Liverpool this season. And you'd think for a team that went and did 4 Premier League titles in a row, you'd think, nah, that's got to be a load of bollocks. But
So how much credit, though, do we give Slot for what he's been able to do? Because he has sprinkled a little bit of his own recipe on this team. He has brought out the best in the likes of Mo Salah. Gravenberch, there's been some players who I think he's gotten a lot out of compared to Klopp. How do you split the percentage of credit here in your head?
I personally think that he deserves immense credit. I think that I don't want to get into a Pep Guardiola bashing game, but I just gave you the stat there, where he's been ahead of them in all but one season out of the 4, and this is a bloke who finished He didn't even win the Dutch league last season. I think he finished runner-up in the Dutch league. This isn't a bloke that has had every single world-class player that you could think of handed to him on a plate, more or less, throughout his career in management. This isn't someone that's come into really settled environments every time. And even this one that he's come into, yeah, of course, the foundations, like, you know, he's not going into a chaotic club where things are going wrong and stuff like that. He's coming into a club that finished third in the league last season. The foundations are very much there. And he's got a little bit lucky with the form of the other big teams. But at the same time, he joins a very, very few list of managers that have been able to come in and do it in their first season. Jose Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti, Antonio Conte, Manuel Pellegrini. I've just named 4 there that realistically were held at the time. It's hard to go back and, you know, remember things, but were held in the time in much higher esteem than Arne Slot. The only one that won it in his first season is the miracle of Leicester, Claudio Ranieri. Do you know what I mean? And maybe he wasn't held in as higher esteem as Arne Slot. But every other single manager there that has gone and done it in their first season has been. So I still think he deserves immense amount of credit. And I think that when I watch Liverpool play this season, I do see a lot of the fundamentals that were put in there by Jurgen Klopp. But it's clear to me that I'm watching a different team. It is clear to me that I'm watching a different team. It's not copy and paste.
I think it's a little bit better, personally. I think it's a little bit in the way that it's not full-on heavy metal, and it is a little bit more, let's retain the ball, let's... it's such a pain in the arse playing this Liverpool side. Like, we obviously got them at the perfect time in that cup final, but there's games where, like, when we drew, I think we drew 3-3 with them earlier this season, that I didn't think we could ever play better than that. And yet we were, I think we were 3-1 up, and it was 3-3 before we know it. We're hanging on for dear life, and they just will the ball into the back of the net. And I've got to give Liverpool credit. Like, as much as the competition isn't, you can only beat what's put in front of you, right? And I think that they were fantastic, and I think that they would have given any side in the past a good run for their money. It's just a case of, it's a shame as a fan of the sport that we didn't get more of a competition, because for me, the more you're pushed to the bitter end, the more impressive it is when you win that title. And that's not Liverpool's fans' fault and Liverpool's fault. Like with Man City, when Klopp got 97 points and he didn't win a league title, like it just made what Pep was able to do that much more impressive. So we'll move on to the Champions League race, lads. Obviously, Chelsea and Newcastle fighting for everything right now. Annoyingly, Chelsea have put a couple of good results together. How are you boys feeling about it?
I'm feeling fucking fantastic, mate. Everything. Listen, if all YouTube stuff falls down the pan, I might just go into like tarot card reading or something, because everything I say just ends up coming true.
And now, a word from our sponsors. Now, we hear about people getting hacked online all the time, and the reality is someone could be stealing your data right now. If you're getting spam emails or random phone calls from numbers you don't recognize, that could easily mean your info has been compromised. It happens to all of us, and if you want to take control of your data, just click the link in the description below and check out Incogni. And the reason we need Incogni is because there are people out there known as data brokers, and they just collate all of your personal information. Anything from your email, your full name, your address, even your political affiliation. And then they sell all of this info on you far and wide, which is why all of these marketing agencies and businesses are randomly contacting you. And not just that, but there's people using this information to con people out of money. It's pretty freaking serious, like. And that is where Incogni come to the rescue. They reach out to all these data brokers on your behalf and demand that all your information be removed from their databases. And they don't just do this for a one-time thing. They will continue to police the internet on your behalf to make sure that your details don't get out there again. All you need to do is click the link in the description, create an Incogni account, and tell them whose data you want removed. You then grant them the right to work on your behalf, kick back, relax, and Incogni will let you know when you're all sorted. And the great thing is it's risk-free for 30 days, so if you try it and you don't fancy it, you can always get a free refund. So take back your personal data today. Click the link in the description below and use the word kickoff. That's kickoff, all block capitals, all one word, and you can get 60% off your annual plan. Big thanks to Incogni for looking after us all, but for now, enjoy the video.
I said we'd only need a run of 3, 4, maybe even 5 wins or so to guarantee those Champions League spots. And we've got 2 of them. If we can get another 2 out of our remaining fixtures, I think we're just about going to get it. And will it be lucky? Yes. It will be lucky because the performances have been a bit of a shit show since Christmas, to be honest. But you make your own luck in this life.
I like that,
and I'm starting to believe that we are gonna get lucky and do it.
Who's your 3 then, Joe? Who's your 3 that get Champions League alongside Arsenal, Liverpool?
So Arsenal, Liverpool, City are my 3 that are
the
nailed
locks,
on for
yeah.
it. City could just win every game now. And then the remaining 2. In fact, I put Newcastle ahead of City, so then I'd put City, Chelsea, and then I believe that
that's it, isn't it?
Aston
That'd be it.
That'd be the top 5,
yeah.
So you're saying Forest miss out?
On the last day of the season against Chelsea, yeah.
Are you feeling the same, Josh? Because you've just shook your head there.
What I love about Joey is that he is the eternal optimist, and whenever I record any of these videos with him, he always cheers me up, and I unfortunately I don't share the same optimism. I mean, beating a Liverpool team that are imperious is going to be one of the toughest games of the season. Even at home, I'm just not confident of that game. The Newcastle game, you will beat us. I'm almost certain of that. Like you just have this kryptonite against us. It's the way you play. It's Eddie Howe's football. That just makes us look stupid. The Man United game is probably the only win that I can see us actually putting together. And then Nottingham Forest away in the last game of the season. There's one thing that a young Chelsea squad are not very good at is dealing with 1, pressure, and 2, aggressive fan bases, like big stadiums, big atmosphere, big noise. And I don't think there's any guarantee that we get a result in that game. And so if we do go on to beat Liverpool this weekend, then obviously everything starts looking a lot more possible. And, there isn't as much pressure on that last game of the season. And if that's the case, then maybe it's doable. But until that point, I'm not getting ahead of myself. And I'm predicting us to finish in 6th with Forest taking up the place that Joey
I don't blame you for that.
Can I ask you a question then? Imagine our running, right, was Ipswich, Southampton, who are pretty shit. West Ham. Do you know what I mean?
And you got United. United have got to be in there, and you got them, to be fair, mate.
No, but I'm thinking like
Spurs probably
should Spurs would be a good one, right? Imagine there were them 4 teams. Would you swap them 4 teams for the 4 teams you've had? No, that we have. No, the logical answer is yes. Of course you would. But indenting them 4 teams, you can't directly take points from a rival. We've got 2 games against rivals that we can take points from.
I love how
it's not a guarantee.
I'm not. No, but truly, it is really something special that you're all watching at home right now, and I want you to pay attention to this, right? Because whenever anyone else thinks, fuck me, these are hard games against rivals, like it's the worst type of team to play, right? Top 6 teams, he goes, but we can take points off them. And it's just like, and it's just the type of thing I've never heard anyone else say before in my entire life.
It's why his lad breaks his best mate. It's why he's Bookie's best mate.
Now,
are you feeling confident, Brian?
I'm definitely not feeling confident.
Really?
Yeah, and I understand.
I'm surprised about that.
Mate, here's the thing is, everyone knows their own team better than anyone else, right? And it's one of those things where I'm looking at like the legs are just getting a little tired all of a sudden. And yes, we are putting wins together. Isak right now, he looks fucked, right? And this is a worry for anyone thinking, Isak's going to, change your team and win your title. He probably will, right? But at the same time, his fitness is consistently a problem season on season, and he looks out on his feet right now. We've got no one to come in. Eddie Wilson's even more fucked, and Salah is just not trusted by Eddie. And Right, we're relying a lot on a lad who looks absolutely out on his feet right now in Isak. So that's a tough one because he's carried us quite a lot enough this season.
Harvey Barnes is going to bang in those goals, mate. You know it. Mate, love Harvey Barnes.
Something's happened with this. What the fuck is he? He's on the steroids, this guy, right? So I look at our fixtures. Brighton away, notoriously, we struggle against Brighton. We have a horrendous record against Brighton. Chelsea at home, I get why the lads think we will win that, right? But equally, it's not what I want. Do you know what I mean? I'm not looking at that thinking, hey, great, we get to take points off our rivals. I'm thinking, fuck, they've got a lot to play for. And with players like Cole Palmer, it's just a scary game. Arsenal away, one of the hardest games in the league. And yes, we've got a good record against them. And they haven't got anything to play for now.
No.
But it's still the last kind of game I'd want.
We might have something to play for. Listen, I know we're talking Premier League.
If you pull off a couple of good wins, sorry to interrupt you, if you pull off a couple of good wins and you do go and beat Chelsea and you win the game in the meantime, then that Arsenal game all of a sudden
second sort of
becomes your chance to have your joint highest ever Premier League.
I mean, that would be amazing, mate. It's just we're not in that Aston Villa game. We still have it in us to just not turn up and just look knackered. And when you say that, you're like, it's bound to happen again towards the end of the season, and I'm just scared as to who it happens against, because if it happens against Chelsea, we could really be in fucking deep trouble. And playing Everton, right? Everton, yeah, I think we should beat them, but they're a horrible team. They're just a hard-nosed bastard.
Is that St. James's? Is that St. James's?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I would be a lot worse if it was at Everton, right? They're just a team that I fucking hate playing, because you never think that's an easy game. And their fans hate us and we hate them, and we always try and really make a fist of it. And Pickford's the goalkeeper and he fucking hates Newcastle, so he'd love to save every shot that day. And I look at Nottingham Forest and Man City's fixtures. Man City, I think, are going to walk this. They're hitting form at the right time. Nottingham Forest, they got Brentford, Palace, Leicester, West Ham and Chelsea. That's, the Chelsea game is the tricky one, and that might be a right playoff for a Champions League spot, which would be exciting. I hope we're in before that happens. But Forest have good fixtures. Forest have really good.
Palace isn't a walk in the park, though.
It's not a walk in the park, but what I'm saying is they've got better fixtures than Newcastle do, and they've got better fixtures than Chelsea do, in my opinion, Forest. And as much as they have stumbled a little bit, that worries me a lot.
Forest have the easiest running.
Yeah, them and Man City, yeah. Which means it could be whoever wins that Newcastle-Chelsea game. It could come down to that one game.
So shall we ask the neutral in Jacob? I want to know what Jacob's top 5 is.
Obviously, Liverpool and Arsenal. I think Arsenal will just hold on to second place. I think third will be City after us.
Yeah,
and I think actually it's not being spoken about enough how well they're finishing this season. Marmouche looks like he's ready to go next year. Well, yeah, they spent a little bit of money, haven't they?
Yeah,
no, not even that. Ireland.
Well, yeah,
true.
Bring him out the team and it ticks.
Yeah.
Fourth and fifth.
I think fourth. I think because of their fixtures, I will go Forest, and then I think Newcastle will get fifth. Yeah. I think Newcastle will get fifth. I just look at those games. I think there's enough of those games. I think they'll win that Chelsea game, Newcastle. As you boys said, tactically, Newcastle seems to have Chelsea's number.
You know, one thing that does give me a little bit of hope, and until recently where Chelsea just started nicking games out of nowhere, we feel like more of a big game side. Like Eddie Howe's record against the big six is really good, and Chelsea's is really bad. So that does give me a bit of hope, but against a Cole Palmer, you never know. Let's finish on this PSG game tonight, which Jacob is going to Arsenal PSG in the Champions League. I mean, this is a real chance for Arsenal to actually steal the show this season and win this thing for the first time ever. How are you feeling ahead of the game, mate?
I'm shitting myself. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm shitting myself. This is the second Champions League semi-final in 20 years.
Wow.
We are... we've drawn so many games this year. I can sit here and tell you 1,000 reasons why we're going to beat PSG. I've watched us lose to West Ham at home this year. So that when your team has shown you that side of itself as recent, and I mean, even the Palace game, less than a week ago, we looked so poor in that second half.
Every knockout game you've had in the Champions League, though, I watch highlights of your group games, or whatever they call it now, the group stages. But every knockout game you've had in the in the Champions League, you've looked like a different beast to what you've looked like.
Yeah,
in the
we have.
League.
We have, and I think there's something about it that suits us. And it was funny when the draw was being made, I was praying for PSG over Villa because I thought if Villa turn up mid-block, play in the way that we don't like people playing against us. That's why we've drawn so many games, because there's such an easy way to stop Arsenal scoring goals now. Is you block the middle of the pitch, you try and hit them on the counter. And I look at this
just off the back of that. Out of the 3 teams, right?
Yeah.
If you could have drawn any, I know they're different sides to draw, but if you could have drawn any, would you have picked PSG out of the 3 that are still in it with Arsenal?
I'd have certainly picked them ahead of Milan. I look at PSG and I think, especially, do you know what I look at, Joe? That midfield, physically we bully them. Physically we bully their midfield, and I love their midfield. Vitinha, João Neves, the way they play football, I think it's lovely. I think so much of their strength is in the wings and those fast wing forwards. And I think in Timber and Miles Lewis-Skelly, we're as well equipped as anyone to deal with that. They like to bomb both their fullbacks on, Mendes and Hakimi, and we'll get behind both of them. If you try that with us, you're fucked, mate. Don't you try that fullback shit with us, because we'll kill you. I think tactically we are a pretty decent side for them. But this is Champions League semi-final, and I watched that Doué kid, that's goal he scored against Villa, and it's like...
He's so good.
Good, isn't it?
They all are. Josh, they've
improved a lot since they sold Ugarte. I will say that. Since they got rid of that dud.
Kvaratskhelia, the geezer they bought for the left wing from Napoli, that's a player and a half.
Oh,
so
I think if you win the night, you win the whole thing. By the way, I've got this feeling in that now I actually know what it feels like to win a trophy. I'm starting to see, like, you kind of get a feeling of, oh, this is our year sort of thing. And if you can beat this PSG side over 2 legs, I feel like you'll have enough in the tank to go and win the final, because then the momentum will be really strong then. And,
if you take away occasion, this ties the final. Because I disagree with you, Jacob. I think that PSG are the best team on form.
I agree.
Tournament. I look at them and I'm like, I love tournament football, and I'm a little bit like, oh, they're giving me Italy Euro 2020 vibes. Like they're not. They're not superstars, but they're a great team.
So
do you know
true.
what I mean? And
they're young. They're young. That's my only thing. Are they a bit green?
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Is it like, I think they're going to be a brilliant team, and I think for the next few years in Europe, we're all going to be tuning in with PSG games, right? These are going to become that team that every kid wants to play with on FIFA because they're fun. I just look at them now. Doué 19, Kvaratskhelia is only 23. Is it Barcola, the other winger?
Yeah,
he's 20.
Bradley Barcola. Yeah.
It's a young team in midfield. It's a young team. João Neves, young player. I just wonder if this is a couple of years early for them. Whereas I look at Arsenal, Declan Rice, Saliba, 23, 24 now. Marino leading the line. I mean, I've told you this already. I've promised on my Arsenal podcast I've got to get a fucking Mikel Merino tattoo if we win this tournament. But he's a 28-year-old. He won a tournament last summer. And actually, I think in the slightly slower Champions League, he's perfect for this.
Yeah. What do you say, Josh? Because you're shaking your head. Who do you think wins this?
No, I'm not. I'm shaking my head just because I find it funny that we're just comparing, 25-year-old, and just that he's there, and it could be in the Champions League final. I find it very funny. The reason why I was shaking my head slightly earlier on is the imperious form of Barcelona. Like, Copa del Rey, they've just beaten Real Madrid again. They're walking that league as well. I think Barcelona are. I don't know, maybe it's just me as a Premier League bias, but maybe I've slept a little bit on how good Barcelona actually are now with Hansi Flick. Do you know what I mean? I think
what Barcelona
really
have as well, though? They have that same fucking thing that Man United have, where even when they're not at their absolute best that we've ever seen them, winning trophies is in the DNA of that club. And when they're on the big stage, those footballers like Real Madrid, they kind of know, like, we're expected to win this. Yous are never expected to win this. We are. And that expectation sometimes, it just carries them through it because this is what's supposed to happen. And I'd be kind of hoping for them to go out and to face Inter Milan in the final if I was you, just so that you're not up against that mentality.
I've just got a sneaky feeling. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just weird, but I have a feeling that PSG win this game and then Barcelona win the final. Ooh. That's my prediction.
Could see it. I think Joey? It's a great last four, isn't it, boys? It is a great last four.
It is, yeah. Joey, what are you saying?
I'm sorry, Jacob, but I think PSG win the tournament.
Wow. It's interesting that Man City and Real Madrid, who have basically dominated, like, getting to this point, like, we haven't seen the semi-finals without those two in for fucking how long? To not have them there, I think it's good for football. No disrespect, Man City fans, all two of you.
But then that's kind of why Arsenal deserve it in a way. And I never thought I'd be sat on a podcast saying Arsenal deserve to win the Champions League. But the statement win of the tournament, there's been some great games, by the way. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Barcelona and Milan coming back, you know what I mean? But I think that the statement win of the tournament has obviously been the two legs over Real Madrid for Arsenal.
It would be a shame if Declan Rice, after that performance, doesn't lift the trophy. Like, fucking hell. What a fucking memory that this is. It's like, it's something that will define his whole career if he does that and has that moment.
100%. And it could be interesting. He's one to watch tonight because he's got to play a different position. Where Partey's out, he's going to have to play 6 now. And it's funny, at the start of the season, I was screaming for him to start playing 6. I didn't like him playing high up. And now he's fucking banging him in.
Who's the midfield 3, Jacob, then, that you're going to start with?
I think it's most likely going to be Merino left 8, Rice at 6, and Ødegaard, obviously, right 8. And I mean, Ødegaard's season has been catastrophic at this point.
You're backing them to overrun the PSG midfield with that.
Yeah, I am.
So you're putting Rice up against. You're putting Rice up against 3 men.
No, mate. Rice, Marino, and Ødegaard. Look, would I back Ødegaard to finish from 18 yards out? No. Would I back him to keep running? That's one thing he hasn't stopped doing. He runs. He fucking presses like an animal. Marino the same. He does not stop winning those duels.
Yeah.
All right, let me know in the comments, everyone, predictions for this PSG Arsenal game. If you manage to get this before that game, let us know who you think is finishing in the top 5. Hit the like button, subscribe to The Kickoff. See you in the next one.